Hey guys, welcome back, and in this part we're going to go ahead and start blocking out the body. So I kind of went ahead again and worked ahead just so you guys can see what we are going to be doing in this part. We're going to go ahead and try to do this, which obviously is not smoothed yet. I tried to block out most of the major parts that are going to be within this piece. As you can tell, it is fairly complicated, but it should be okay. So we are keeping the mesh very clean, so we can use our insert edge loops anywhere we want, and it goes through all the way on the mesh, so it's going to be very clean. And then later on we'll be adding all the edge loops where it's needed, so once we smooth it, the mesh will keep its shape. And obviously we're going to go ahead and add extra details around here, and there will all be separate pieces to try to keep this as simple as possible, because if we all wanted to model this out of one big piece, it would get crazy. As you can tell, also we are only modeling the top half as one piece, and then we'll make the bottom part as another piece. And this is just my way of thinking. This might be the best way to do this. So this is the way we're going to be doing this. So let's get started. So I'm just going to go ahead and delete this, and I went ahead and turned off the block, so it still do have this block, but I'm just going to get rid of it and start everything from scratch. So I'm going to go ahead and turn off the head, because we don't really need that to save performance, because I think we're at about 20,000 polys already. So the first thing I'm going to do is create a cube, and start with the cube as we most of the time do. And I'm just going to go ahead and drag it out to about here. Okay, so I'm going to drag it to about here, go into my front view, and I'm just going to go ahead and drag this to about here. And I'm just going to go ahead and hold out an X and snap it to the middle of the grid, and then press R and scale this out so it's roughly the right size. Okay, so now that we have that, we're going to go ahead and add in this bit here. And also, if I just have a look, this bit should be a little bit higher, so I'm just going to drag this so this vertex lines up with this line, and then we're going to go ahead and add an edge loop around here. And then if I go to my vertexes, drag this down to here. So this is the major block for the top half, really. I'm also going to go ahead and drag these two up. Let's go to my front view, and we're not going to drag this in, okay, we're just going to leave that where it is, and start working on the first major bit of the body, which is going to be this front two gaps in here. Okay, so as you can tell, probably not, you can't tell from here, but this is actually extruded in. So we're going to go ahead and start on that piece. So just going to go into my front view, turn X-ray back on, and then go to my insert edge loop tool. And if you notice on the reference that we have, we're going to go ahead and put this edge loop to this line. Okay, so it's the second line in, which is this line on the other side as well. So one goes in here, and then another one goes into here. Okay, so now that we have that, I'm just going to come into my perspective, and what we're going to do is we are going to go ahead and also add an edge loop on the side. So I'm going to go ahead and insert edge loop tool to about here, and that should be looking pretty good. And now what we're going to do is we're basically going to get rid of these faces here. So I'm going to go ahead and select this, and this, and also going to select this, and this, and this, and delete. So now what we got to do is just go fill in this gap that we made here, and we can simply do that by just selecting this edge and extrude it, not that way. So just going to set the offset to 0 and just drag this down. So it doesn't have to be all the way to the bottom, just roughly there. And then I'm going to do the same thing with this, extrude down, and I'll turn this to 0. So I'm just dragging these down, and then we'll merge the vertices later on. Extrude, going to turn the offset to 0, drag down, and then the same thing with this edge. So extrude, offset to 0, and then just drag it down. Okay, so now that we have these extruded, all we're going to do is go to our merge vertex tool, and we're just going to simply go ahead and snap these to the right place where they're supposed to be. So snap, snap, snap. Same thing with this side. If I could click it, there we go. Get that down there. Okay, so now we have this major part created. Now the next thing that we're gonna do is we're gonna add this track on the side. So there is actually a little extrusion in here that goes into the body. If you look at the references, different references, you'll be able to see it, and that's the track where this arm runs on. So there is actually a joint on the inner side of this, and basically the joint, it travels along this track, and that's how his arm moves forward and down and so on. So now we're going to go ahead and add that in. So the first thing I'm going to do is go to my side view and just turn X-ray on, and insert edge loop tool, and basically I'm just kind of guessing this roughly. You can always adjust it later if you have to, but I'm going to add an edge loop here where basically his wrist is, and I'll add another one on the bottom of his wrist. Now the next two lines that we're going to add is where we actually can see on the reference where this thread's supposed to be, or indentation. So I'm going to add one there and add one there. And obviously, as you can tell, this line went the wrong way around. So I'm just going to go ahead and select this vertex, these two verts, click on the Y axis, hold down V, and then just point snap it up so it's straight. So now if I turn my X-ray off and look around the model, this will basically be the track where this is going to be traveling along, and same on the other side. Now this looks a little bit off, so this gap looks bigger than this one, so we might just go ahead and select this edge loop, or maybe even the bottom one, drag this up a tiny bit, select the top one, drag this down a tiny bit, so it looks a little bit more even than it does now. So we also need to add an edge loop on the back here, so I'm just going to go back into my side view, go into X-ray, and I'm just going to go ahead and add this edge loop around here. So this is, if you could see on the inner side, this is where the joint would be that connects his arm. So the indentation will go about that far in. So basically this indentation needs to be in here. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and select it on both sides, and then simply we're going to go ahead and hit extrude, and in the channel box we're just going to go ahead and change the thickness and drag this in probably about minus 0.4 or minus 0.5. Let's see how that looks, and that might be a little bit too deep I think, so we're just going to change this to minus 0.3 maybe. Yeah, that looks a little bit better. Again, I'm doing this all by eye and from the references that I remember in my head of how deep this should actually be, and that looks about correct. So now that we have this major part blocked out as well, we're going to go ahead and add the bits at the top. Now I actually do have a little Wall-E robot in front of me that I've been studying, so I can actually feel it and hold it and see how this is constructed. I mean, it's only a toy, so it doesn't exactly look exactly like Wall-E in a movie, but I can get some inspiration from it, so it does the job. So what we're going to do is, if you remember in the Wall-E movie, his head actually folds in a little bit, so this top part, this top pieces basically move forward into his head somehow, and his whole head can go down inside his body. So basically it moves down, his neck folds down, and it fits into his body. Okay, so basically we got to keep this gap in mind and see how big this actually has to be so his head can fold in. And I kind of came to the conclusion that if we just add an edge loop nearly about half of his body, that should do it. So if we just add one to about here. So again, I'm doing this by eye and just thinking about how this is supposed to be. And I think I'm going to move this forward just a bit. And also there are, in the toy, there are two little like extrusions here to add some extra detail. So we'll go ahead and add them as well later on, but we'll model them separately. So now that I'm kind of happy with the size of this, as you can tell I'm moving this wet on the bottom as well, but that's right because we'll go ahead and fix that later. So now that I have that, I'm just going to go ahead and might as well fix these two vertices on the bottom here. So first thing I'm going to do is select both of them and just snap them here, and now I'm just going to go ahead and move this up like so. So now that I have that, we're going to go ahead and add the place for where his neck comes out from. So I'm not quite sure how, we're going to have to improvise quite a bit of how this neck is connected inside his body to some kind of mechanism that makes it lift up and down. But I don't know, we'll think of some cool way of doing it, so that will be a part where we can go ahead and use our creativity. So the first thing we're going to do is cut out this gap here where his neck can be lowered and so on. So that's what we're going to do. If I just go into my top view and go ahead and insert edge loop tool, you're going to go ahead and add two loops to about there. So again, I'm improvising, we might change this later, but for now this will do the job. And also I'm going to go ahead and add two loops on the edge here. So if I just go back into my top view, I'm going to add one about here, and I'm going to add one about here as well. So now that we have those, the reason why I added them is because these two pieces will basically extrude down. Now I think we'll also add another edge loop here as well. So if I just add one around to about here, you'll see in a minute why we're doing this. So I'm going to go ahead and first of all select all of these, and this whole bit will be lowered, so extrude it, and I'm just going to move it down a tad, not too much, and then we're going to have probably even a little bit more. We're only going to go ahead and grab that middle face and extrude that down, so that will be the gap that goes inside his body. And now I can also go ahead and just delete this face. So basically you see what our issue is, that I don't actually know how this will work if we wanted to rig this and so on. later on, but basically we're going to need some kind of a thing inside here that will let his neck move up and down into his body, and we'll think of a cool way of doing this. Also, this section will have to open up so his head can fit inside the gap, but we'll worry about it later. But I'm just, whenever you're doing this, you got to keep this in mind, okay? So now that we have these pieces made as well, we can start thinking about the extra details that we're going to add in here and add in here as well. I also think that we're going to go ahead and lower these bits down just a tiny bit, so not too much. Just going to go ahead and extrude down just to make it a little bit cooler. We might also scale this down a little bit to give it some thickness. I think that's what we're going to do, so I'm just going to go ahead and scale like so. So not too much, and I'm going to drag it out this bit to about there, maybe. And I'm just checking if I'm happy with this or not. Fairly happy. So I'm going to go ahead and extrude again and just drag this down just a tiny bit. And that's where our extra detail is going to go in. And I'm not sure. Basically, we'll have two little things in here, and that will make it look a lot cooler, trust me. I'm also going to add an extra loop in the middle for reference purposes later. So right down the middle we're going to add one. So now we kind of have most of the major bodywork blocked out. We still have obviously loads of little details to add in here and add in there, so we might go ahead and do that in a minute. I'm just checking if we got all the major parts. Obviously we got loads of detail at the back as well, but that will be a different piece. So I'm just making sure that we have everything that is at the moment necessary so we can move ahead with this piece. There are two little indentations in here that we could add before we start smoothing this piece, I think. So we might as well just go ahead and do that. I'm just checking my robot at the same time to see how this looks. Yep, that's what we're going to do. So we're going to go ahead and insert 2 edge loops, or might as well say 4. Just go into our front view, and this is the 2 things that I was speaking about. So we're going to add one here. Here. This might not be a good idea, but if it isn't, we can go ahead and check it in a minute to see how this is interacting with the rest of the mesh. So it's not that bad. We'll see how it works out. We're going to go ahead and select this and this and this and this. Actually, you're going to have to do this separately, I think. Oh well, we can do it together as well, I think, so should be okay. Gonna go hit extrude, go to offset, drag it in, and that looks okay. And then now go ahead and drag in thickness. We're gonna have to go ahead and hit extrude again. Offset this in again to give us that loop, because we might as well while we're here. Extrude, thickness in, tiny bit, extrude, thickness in, a tiny bit, extrude, thickness in, a tiny bit, extrude scale, or not scale, offset in like so. So now that should look pretty cool, and it does. Once we'll be able to smooth it, it will look good. So now that you have that detail added as well, there are all this little details in here, but I think we're going to make them out of separate pieces to try to keep this as clean as possible. I think we might go ahead and just do this bit still in here. So I'm going to select all of these, extrude, offset, to about here, then extrude, offset again to give it that loop, extrude, thickness inwards, and then extrude thickness inwards, just a tiny bit, not so much, because I don't think this would have to be that deep. And extrude scale, or offset like so. So that panel is now done, and obviously there will be little bits and bobs sitting inside here that we'll model as separate pieces. And I think the other side has the same thing as well, so we might as well go ahead and do that. So I'm going to go ahead and select all of these, and go ahead and extrude, offset. I want to make this one a little bit bigger, just to give it a sense of difference kind of thing. So extrude again, offset, in, extrude, thickness, in a tiny bit to give us that edge loop, extrude, thickness, in, extrude, yep, and then extrude, offset, in. There we go, snap. Okay, so now we have these two windows where bits are going to sit inside, and there's a grill in here and so on. So we have that. There will be a little edge going around here that will cover, give this bit like a top that we're going to add. So we are looking pretty good. So in the next part, we're going to go ahead and I think we're going to go ahead and add this top that basically sits around the top half of Wally. It's kind of like a little edge that's going around here and here. And then we're going to go ahead and add all the edge loops into this major piece that will let us smooth this, because so far this is what it looks like if you smooth it. So then we're going to do that, and then we can go ahead and work on all these little bits and bobs that will sit inside here and make Wally look really cool. Okay, so we'll see you guys in the next part.